Hello, friends, it's Julie, and today I want to share a few things about how I shop for postcards and ephemera when I'm out going to antique stores. I recently had the opportunity to go back to Minnesota. It was for a few. I wasn't really close. It's just kind of like the passing of the generations of my parents' generation kind of thing, so I felt I had to go. So I took the opportunity to extend the trip a little bit to see people and to also do some sourcing. So first of all, when you go shopping to antique stores for the ephemera, you have to first think about what you're looking for, because if you don't know what you're looking for first, you could get yourself in trouble by buying too much or bypassing the things that would have been good. Also, you have to have a set amount of money that you're thinking about what you want to spend, because a lot of times at postcards, and other stuff at antique stores, they can vary widely in prices. I've seen them from 10 cents to $100 or more. So you just have to kind of know. One thing that I find, since I've been doing postcards for a few years, is that I don't stop and look up. Rarely do I ever look up a postcard on eBay while I'm shopping. For one thing, it seems like if I do, it would take forever. And another reason is that I don't want to look like I just don't want to look like I'm one of those dealer people, even though I kind of am. Okay, so first thing is how to find them in the booth. As you see, as I'm going through here, a lot of times, I'm walking through the booth. I'm looking all around. If they have a walkway, I walk around it. Because a lot of times I find, like, just around the corner, there's a little basket, a little box, a stand of ephemera. Maybe there's something in a case. I don't usually look into glass cases. But, sometimes it's worth it looking. Although most of the times the things in glass cases are more expensive, you never know what people are doing. They just don't want things walking away, which I understand because I have a few antique booths too. Okay, so there's a couple types of antique stores and booths, and one of them is if you go in and you see a lot of white and a lot of decor, that is more of a vintage and collectible decor mall. And the other one, if you walk in there, you see a lot of dark, you see a lot of browns and stuff. That, and a lot of wood, that is usually more of an antique place. Although, there's always exceptions. So the shabby chic white stuff doesn't always have as much postcards and ephemera old stuff. But then again, there are exceptions. So just to kind of think about that when you're looking for those. Because a lot of times you find those old postcard dealers with their old stash and the ones that are more brown. Okay. Now when you find that pile and that stack or those boxes, how do you find the ones you want? Because there were some malls that I went into that had booth after booth of boxes of postcards, and you could be there all day, and you don't want to spend the time. You have to think about the time that you spend to get back your money and to make a profit, because it just, you have to, for instance, for me, for the trip, I needed to have an amount to cover things, to cover the expenses and stuff. So one thing I do is, if it's just a pile, it's easy to flip through. I'll often take it in my hand and hold it close to me, and I'll flip so I can quickly see the front and the back of the postcard. I do that because sometimes on the back there's like an advertisement or something, a message, or either a sample card, or maybe it says Fred Harvey on it or something, and then it's easy to see if it's a private mailing postcard. So then if you can flip that way and do it really quick, that is a good way to get through it. When you see those tall racks, the spinner racks, it's not my favorite way to shop postcards, because for me, I have to take the postcards out of each slot of the rack, flip through them, put them back, and I have to remember which ones. So that's how I go through them. Oftentimes, I will just take and flip through while they're in the rack. If I don't see anything in most of them, I figure they're probably picked through, and I don't spend a lot of time going through. Of course, I'll flip through each one a little bit, but not thoroughly. A lot of times you'll see them in a basket or a bin or a pile somewhere, or even hanging up. Same small amounts of postcards, they usually don't take long to go through. When they have boxes of postcards, they're labeled in categories. that's when you can zero in on what you're really looking for. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to answer it for myself a little later. But if you go into an antique mall or a postcard show with everything in categories that has all the locations, all of the categories, any kind of categories, holidays, transportation, whatever that you could want or imagine, that are there. So what are the first three categories or places that you're going to go look for your postcards? Okay, think about that, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. Okay, so when you see the boxes of postcards, that's when you want to go to your top categories and do that first. And then if it looks promising, then you will want to keep looking through the categories. And a lot of times people will file, most of the times they file the postcards in the back of the divider card, but sometimes it's the front, and sometimes people flip them. So sometimes, because things get shuffled around, I found some really good postcards that were misfiled. And that's part of why it's nice to be able to take your time. And that's another tip, too, I didn't put up front, was that try to have enough time. I went shopping by myself, and that was good because then I didn't have anyone to wait for me. There was one antique store in Buffalo, where I used to live in Minnesota, that I didn't have enough time to go to last time. And so then I really budgeted my time to be able to spend more, because I knew there were some good postcards in there from last time and good ephemera, and I had some good items that I found. Okay, so as you're looking for those spots to find those postcards in the booth, there's also vendors that put their postcards in binders. So you want to check that out too. And maybe there's an album of postcards. So then you kind of have to look at the bookshelf and think, okay, is there a binder? Most of the time on the spine, they will put what they are. But sometimes you have a mystery binder. So then you want to look at those. And then flip through those too. Those are usually quick flips. Okay, so are there any other places that you have found postcards, any different ways that they're displayed that I haven't mentioned? I'd like to know, and post that below to help other people too when they're looking. Another thing to look for, if you, like at the end of my sourcing trip, I was just really tired of looking at postcards. And I kind of felt like when I was in Anoka, it was pretty picked through. There wasn't a lot of good ones. There were a few, but I think a lot of people had already picked through Anoka. So what I started to do was I looked just for the real photo postcards. And the way to do that is, if you have like a box and they're not tightly packed, you can kind of see which postcards are curved. And those are the real photo postcards. And that's an easy way to find them. And that's what I started to do when I just got really tired of looking. And then if I found a few in a spot, then I would stop and browse a little bit more in that area, because then I know maybe people didn't look for the ones I was looking for, because every postcard dealer kind of has their own preferences from what they like to stock and things that they need to stock, because sometimes they have maybe plenty of Yellowstone or something, and I'm always looking for Yellowstone because people are come out here to Billings. So prices on postcards, they're usually written on the back or written on the sleeve. Hopefully they didn't write it on pen, because that's usually a deal breaker for me unless it's a really good one. Sometimes there'll be a price in the box. There was one place that had an envelope that said, bring this envelope up with your postcards, and so they didn't price them individually. They just said, bring this up, and then they would just price them all together like that, which is kind of interesting. Just different techniques. I guess different malls have different ways that they have that available for the vendors to mark. So look for the lightly penciled price, or marked like that. I usually don't spend more than $5 for a postcard when I'm sourcing, unless it's a really good one, because like I said, I'm usually not doing the research on the fly. If it's more than $5, I usually then do look it up, because I want to make sure I'm not getting a clunker. And but I think taking a risk on a postcard for $1 isn't bad, because my minimum is what I sell them for is about $5.97. So I'm still making a profit on it, even though it's not, may not be as much as I'd hope, because I want to have things that are at least worth $10 each, because it's just easier for me. But then everybody, like I said, has different philosophies and what they're looking for. All right. Another thing to do, if you have just gone to a booth and you found yourself with a pile of postcards, a nice thing to do for the mall is to go up to the register and say, hey, can you hold these for me? And you can start counting them, because it will take them a while to start counting, and they get busy with other people as well. So then it's just a nice courtesy, and then as you go up, you can add to the pile. And then when you get up there, hopefully you won't have long to wait. I do that often because I've stood there for a while in line and had people behind me. It's just a nice way to do things, and it can help you have more time to look at other places. Okay, so when I went to Minnesota, just a side note here, the weekend after I went was one of the Twin Cities postcard shows. And I was kind of bummed. I was thinking, should I stay a little longer? But it just I'd be there like a week and a half, and I just didn't want to take that much time. So I'm thinking about sometime in the future, would anyone be interested in doing a meetup if we did that in Minnesota, do the Twin City Postcard Show? I know that there's a few people here that are from Minnesota or close by. Maybe we could do something. Just let me know if you're interested. Comment below, or check me out on my Facebook page, which is small. I don't post a lot, but there are quite a few nice ephemera people there, and very helpful and supportive. So I think we are starting to have a good group. I think we just need to get more people to post, because it is a group. It is not a page. It is for everybody to use for ephemera sellers. I think the last thing I'll mention is that just be careful not to go crazy, to not source more than you really need, because there's always going to be more postcards. I know this is hard for some of us, because it was for me for a while, but there's always going to be more postcards. There's always going to be more people getting rid of a collection. There's always going to be another haul. I mean, sometimes I deal with FOMO, fear of missing out. What if that one postcard, I'm going to miss it? But there's going to be more. And there's no shortage of old postcards. You just need to get what you need to stock for the amount of time. For me, I think I like to have about 6 months worth in advance. I probably don't need 6 months worth though either. I could probably do with like 2 or 3, but that's just the way I roll, because what if we have another pandemic or something? But that is just kind of think about how many postcards you can list. Usually list in a day or a week, and then estimate how many you need on hand for how long of an inventory you need. And when it kind of gets close to running, to the edge of that, then you can start sourcing again. Of course, there's always exceptions. There might be a really good screaming deal you can't pass up. Of course, that happens. But generally, try not to go out and just buy stuff for the heck of it, just because you're looking. I know that's hard for me too. I'm speaking to myself, so. Okay, so I got to the end of the video while I was editing, and I realized I never told you my top 3 things that I look for first. Hello. So I'm just jumping in here and at the end and saying that, no surprise, the first thing that I look for is Montana and the West, because that's what I like to specialize in. Everybody seems to like Montana, most everybody. So that's my first stop. The second one is a tie between Idaho, another western state, and West Virginia. West Virginia has a good place in my heart because I have sold some good cards there. And then the third item that I'm looking for is real photo postcards. Always looking for real photo postcards and deals on those, because those are always worth a little bit more, not always, but almost always worth more than the original. If there's a divided back or a white border or what, the real photo postcard is generally worth more. If it's been produced, if it's one of a kind, you never know. I sold one of a guy with a trumpet, some kind of musical instrument, for a good amount of money. Somebody with a quilt in the background for over 100, I think. So those old one of a kind images, it would be just so simple to specialize in real photo postcards, but there's so many other good valuable ones too. So share more tips, because I know that I probably missed some below. And thank you so much for watching. Have a joyful day. Goodbye.